Joining us right now from somewhere around the world, folks, it is Mike from around the world. Mike, you there?
Pastor Paul, right here.
Oh, you sound good. You're coming in really good tonight. We're not in our normal studio, of course, but we're here in Knox, Indiana, and working from remotely, getting ready for Summer Fire this weekend, Mike.
It's good to go, and I wish you guys would have went another, 2 hours.
Larry was on fire, wasn't he?
That would have been good. That would have been good.
Well, we had to get to you, Mike. Like I'm saying, you can't stop us, right? You just can't stop the body of Christ.
That's right.
Well, we got into a pretty deep subject here, talking about the UFOs, talking about this whole disclosure agenda, and we talked about some government documents. Some of them are saying they've seen classified documents. Some of them are saying they've seen unclassified. But let me ask you, is there, and if you can say it, is there some type of UFO agenda? We've been told that there is a UAP investigation that's going on, but what can we say about this, Mike? How does it affect the church in any way?
Well, I'm so glad, Pastor Paul, first of all, you guys were talking about that. Is one of the most important topics, right? If a person would listen, because we're gonna have to face it, whether they accept it or not. They're gonna have to face it. If people right now would look, if they would analyze what's been happening, the first stage to get the populace cultivated was paranormal shows, right?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
And that started back in 1999, actually, and then they really ramped it up. Right now, you're talking about these stations were funded billions of dollars. Who's going to fund the airwaves billions of dollars to cover paranormal shows? These were essentially grants, may as well say.
Right.
If you look at television, how many people, the sheer number of people who are involved in paranormal investigations, so on and so forth. But let me tell you how effective it is, right? Most people, when they start talking about spirits, they use the same descriptions that they've gotten from these paranormal television shows. And I told everybody back in, it was a while back, Pastor Paul, I told them I saw some notebooks, right?
Yes, I remember you saying that.
In the notebooks, it was part of a plan. They had to get the populace cultivated with paranormal television. And I was giving everybody a warning that this was going to hit the airwaves, and it would begin to change how people, view that subject as spirits. That was the first step.
Right.
People, one of the major terms now is people will say spirits are energy. Right?
Oh, that's
energy.
True. They're saying that.
That's what they say. You hear things about spiritual children or child ghosts and people that have to be moved on, this, that, and the other, and they have an entire science behind it, right?
Yes.
So people are incredibly intrigued with that, but they've been trained, right? They've been trained. That's not an unusual term to say that a spirit is energy. And that's they taught people this. Right?
This is the terminology they use, that there's energies.
That's
right.
That's right. And it's in the, church people too.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many church people view these shows and take that knowledge. But that was the first step. If they can get people used to the spiritual aspect of things, they'll move it right over to the dimensional aspect of things, right over to where people need to be. Now, these billionaires and rich guys and all this, that, and the other, they've been in on this for a long time. A long, long time. And all of this stems back from government programs.
Are we going all the way back maybe to Operation Paperclip? I mean,
before that.
Even before that. Yeah.
Before that, yeah. There's a lot of esoteric things behind that, especially in this country. But here we are today talking about UFOs. But here's why it's an important subject to the church. Right?
Okay.
And the church is not really dealing with this subject.
No.
They're not. People are going to have to face their loved ones. And this is going to be tough. there are folks who have been through this before. They're going to have to face their loved ones looking up in the heavens at something that a Christian, a believer, may not be able to see, right? But that person beside them, their loved ones will see it. And the first thing that their loved ones are going to say is, it feels, it feels too good to turn away. It feels fulfilling, right? They feel love like they never had before. They're going to be sold out on this thing.
Yes.
They're going to be sold out. And so they're cultivating the public. So the public gives up their authority. So these things will have absolute authority over them. And Christian people, they have to get themselves prepared. They have to realize something, that everybody has a choice, but everybody is not as loyal as they think. And some of their loved ones are going to be ones that will be captured by this. How painful would it be? A Christian who knows Christ, who has a good relationship with Christ, look at their, one of their family members looking up into the heavens, and they can't look away. And they absolutely, totally change. Right?
You've been saying that. Totally there was a while back you said that there's going to be a love about this.
Yep.
That people are going to feel love, feel acceptance, some kind of a goodness or some kind of a loving benevolence. Right. Is that part of the deception?
Yes. Yeah, it'll be, to them, it'll be like a heavenly experience. They'll be totally sold on this because of how they feel, because of the fulfillment. Right now, people don't have fulfillment, right? So to give a person fulfillment, that's one of the ultimate things. They're going to be totally sold out. And it's the fight is happening right now. They're training more and more people. And so Christians really have to get ready. Faith is a big deal. Faith is a big deal. If people believe by proof, Pastor, that's where they're going to mess up. If something is proven to them and then they believe it by way of proof, they're going to be totally sold out. They're going to be sold out. They won't have.
How do you see, when you say the proof now, they're going to see things, they're going to feel things, right? Are there going to be healings that's going to happen? Is there going to be some kinds of manifestations?
Well, since you're talking about this, let me. This happened in Virginia, and I believe it was 87, 88. There was a woman. There were witnesses to this going into her house. A big UFO was seen out of her house, right outside of her house. This thing shrunk itself to the size of a fist. It came into this woman's house. This woman had cancer, right? Cancer. This thing did something to her in about, I guess you could say, 10 seconds or something like that. It went back out of the window, got real big again, and flew off. The next day, the woman did not have cancer.
What?
No cancer. That's not the only case, Pastor Paul. There have been people with unhealable diseases that have been healed from these UFOs. This is happening all over the world. It's been happening all over the world. These stories are going to begin to float around, right? There are rich, powerful people they have absolutely drank the Kool-Aid on this subject.
Yeah.
Right? It's been proven to them that these things are what they say they are. And because people, if someone was healed by a UFO, I just imagine a person's life, they're broken. They have no healing, right? They've been suffering for a long time. All of a sudden, an orb or something shows up and heals them, right? But it does not say they're an angel or with Christ or anything, but simply a UFO. That person, it's going to be hard to tell that person that these things may not be to their best interest. It's going to be very difficult. That person will become an advocate, a minister, if you will, for the UFOs. And even right now, as we're speaking, there are more and more people just like that, ministers, you may as well say, for this new faith that's coming out. They're just rising up all over the world with these stories. Well, and the healings have not stopped.
So there's going to be, according to the Bible, we know that in the last days, there will be these lying signs and wonders, okay? The Antichrist, the false prophet, will be able to operate in these, and obviously, if there's healings, if there's some kind of peace or some kind of aura of a comforting spirit, and we're not talking about, but it's operating outside of the deity of Christ. They're not giving Christ the glory, not giving
That's right.
Jesus the author, he's the author and the finisher of the faith, but they're saying these are something totally different kind of beings, different thing. Then this becomes a blasphemous manifestation, even if it
That's right.
seems to appear to be good or temporarily
right.
good. Would you agree?
That's right. That's right. It's happening. There are people facing this same thing right now. There are going to be some hard hit areas. And when it happens worldwide, because it will, right? It will. When it happens worldwide, that's going to be one of the most difficult times for those, I'm going to say, who sat on the fence.
What do we do? Okay, now Stephen Greer, Larry Ragland mentioned him quite a bit tonight.
That guy.
Stephen Greer is not a he's a forceful. He's trying to lead this entire religion, if you want to call it that. Yep. He's really trying to make it a religion. Do you feel? And he goes and he holds these press conferences. He's getting the media they love him, and they hate us. What are we going to do? Is he being funded by the billionaires? Who's backing him?
Well, he went through a set. I'm going to say he went through a set of staged, or let's say purposed events, right? With the inclusion of his wife, the mishap with his family, so on and so forth. He's been totally convinced these things are absolute, they're real, they're authentic. He's an advocate for them. He has felt them before. In one of his meetings with the CE5 protocol meetings, of which lots of people were out there, an actual being manifested where he was, right? A little short-looking thing manifested. So this guy is sold out, right? He's not going to accept any other narrative, but he is very influential.
Yeah, and he's not. Well, so in other words, first of all, he had to be fooled first, right? I mean, he had to be convinced, 100%. Sorry, we lost you there, Mike, for a second. Probably getting into these subjects. Stephen Greer, he had to be convinced first, right? I mean, he had to be fooled.
Yeah, he did. He went through him. His story seems authentic, right? Yes. But he's a doctor, of course, a surgeon. He was always on the hunt for abstract things. And he strongly believes in these UFO things, right? They gave him the CE5 protocol. These beings did.
Right? It's called CE5.
CE5, yeah, CE5 protocols.
Can you explain to us how this works? What?
Okay, it's essentially a person will clear their heart and their mind of any bad intentions and only fill themselves up with good intentions. Imagine themselves where they are on a map and invite these things where they are, right? That's what they do. They open themselves up.
You open your spirit up. You open up your soul and say, come in.
That's right. That's right. And they'll find they will appear. They will appear. Now, but I'll say this, everybody they appear to in that C5 protocol is likely marked.
Meaning been chosen or have been
marked.
Have been
if
possessed?
A person, when I say marked, it means that they're going to have deeper engagements with these things, with dream levels, different levels that are highly effective. Once a person is captured by this stuff, they seem to be stuck. Strong advocates, but they all have one trademark. You ready? They can't stand Christ.
Oh, he hates Christ. He says we are the enemy. He rebukes the church and Christ. Yes,
absolutely. And you see his face when he's talking about it. But most of them do this. Most of them do this, not realizing what they're saying. You know, they can't even hear what they're saying. But this is a real a real issue. And if anybody does not believe it, just look at how many people believe that spirits, the spirit of a little girl is living on earth, right? And somebody needs to come up and have a ceremony to show them to the light. People actually believe this.
Yeah.
They actually believe it. And so the whole world is being, indoctrinated into this, and trillions of dollars so far has been poured into this. I believe Bigelow is part of that. Bigelow is funded by dark funds, I'll say. A lot of his work is in dark projects, black projects, right?
Yeah.
So nobody ever tracks that type of money. They can't track that money.
So because it's black budget money, it's
That's
not
right.
Is okay. How much of the occult is tied to this entire UFO UAP religion? How much of it is the occult, or is this a separate deal away from the occult?
Based on some of the people I know personally, right? I would say the occult is almost the mastermind behind it. The UFO subject, by appearances, looks as though it's quarantined against the cult, has nothing to do with occultic practices, right? By first glances, because they're attempting to make this authentic, and it's working against those who are not covered by the blood. But you have the occult they're constantly doing things that amplify spiritual activity in different places.
Did Adolf Hitler? I mean, I know he was in the occult, but did he get involved in any of the initial UFO phenomenon? Was he?
Yes. Yeah. He looked for artifacts around the world. He took the swastika from a certain place where he found some other things and some people there. He purportedly made contact with some ancients, right? And so he was highly involved with occult practices. And he was on drugs too, so that didn't, they were filling him up full of drugs. But this it is said that the Germans accomplished quite a bit with UFOs.
All right, now let me ask you. You bring up drugs. There's been a real push now in the UFO community about psychedelics. They're really encouraging, and these are very intellectual, very highly intelligent and influential people who are now really pushing that if you're going to find your consciousness or find yourself, you got to be involved in the psychedelics. Can you tell us why psychedelics? Why that type of drug activity when we talk about UFOs and UAPs?
Hallucinogens, right? Also, it makes you it kind of rewires your neurological firing. So when you're on those drugs, you weaken the connections of will for the person. So they're stuck in a half unconscious state and a conscious state at the same time. When people do this, it's like being drunk. They throw caution to the wind, right? They speak whatever comes to their mind. In this case, they go inside their minds. They imagine a lot of things. They do a lot of things. But whenever this state hits a person, they're highly influenced by spiritual activity around them. They can easily be in. You ever see a person, they're nice, but when they drink, they're just, it's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Right.
They can't control themselves. They do things they wouldn't ordinarily do. They can't remember what they did. I personally believe that when a person drinks, to be drunk, to be saturated with alcohol, a person has no self-control. And if they have no self-control, they begin to operate by any suggestion by way of thought. Now, Jesus said, take captive your thoughts, or the word says, take captive your thoughts.
Right.
Well, they're not doing that. They speak or act on those thoughts that just come in, right? So these folks who are taking these psychedelics, it just causes them, it turns their brains into mush for a moment, and they start giving into fantasies, right? Imaginations. It also speaks about imaginations. We're to cast those things down. So that lets me know that thoughts and imaginations can sometimes be external. Suggestions coming in from dark forces.
External,
right?
Yeah, coming in. All right, Mike, we also want to talk tonight about what's happened in Nepal. Along the border there with Tibet, China, this glacier that broke off. And it caused this massive landslide. And I don't know what the death toll is. I haven't heard today. I've been traveling today, but it's quite catastrophic, I'm understanding.
It is.
Is the earthquake what caused the glacier to break off, or is the glacier what caused the earthquake to take place?
That glacier was under great stress. And it was, things are melting. It's unusually warm everywhere, right? Italy has found that out with some of the weather they're having. Nepal is always, there's always some geological activity taking place there. It's not quite right. I think the heat and the ocean currents are affecting most of these ice sheets and these blockades of ice are affecting them greatly. They're cracked in the middle. They found several places where the ice is totally given way on the inside of these larger icebergs. They have sensors down in these things. Now they're full of cavities, which means they could that same event, Pastor Paul, could easily take place in other locations. I think that's just the first of many cause and effect cycles that we're going to see. I do. Plus, Nepal is inherently, that's a very dark place anyway. Yeah. Isn't that where they practice, what is it, Bakshi?
What is that?
Bakshi. That's witchcraft. That's in Nepal. That's witchcraft.
That's pretty bad right there.
Most of the people are still socially involved with that stuff. So I wouldn't expect anything good to happen in that place, but the ice is, that's going to happen all over the place. I'm really concerned about the southern regions of the planet, Pastor Paul, because the ice underneath is gone. They pulled expeditions out. They pulled these observation pods out from the floor of the ocean where the ice is, where they were, getting samples and things, because the ice is melted. It's melting from the bottom up.
So and that's because of the magma that's rising. And what about Super El Nino? I mean, isn't that also affecting what's going on?
Yeah, I think what I really think, Pastor. I think they're trying to play catch up. Right? On your show, we've been talking about this a long time. They never spoke about the weather taking a turn like this, and all of a sudden they come up with a term, right?
Yeah.
To be the experts on what's happening so they can save face. If you look at some of the patterns of what they're calling Super El Nino, they do not match what's expected of a Super El Nino. They just don't. They don't stand the test. There's a problem with the sands that are blowing over here. There's a stall where the hurricanes usually come from. We're going to see an example of that in about a day or two. A disbursement event of the rain. It'll seem passive, but it will cause some bad rainfall to become stagnant. Wind flows. There's going to be two more after that. One of them could be responsible for obstructing the jet stream, right? We're going to have the wind shears to be too strong. And that's going to cause some high pressure vortices, which could really turn our jet stream in the opposite direction for a little bit.
And you talked about that last week, about the jet streams almost ready to turn and go back the other way. Obviously, if the jet stream across America, instead of going from west to east, if the jet stream was to start taking the winds from east to west significantly, not just a temporary one-day thing, but are you saying we could see almost permanent shift, or at least a seasonable shift of some sort?
Yeah, we could once it shifts, because we're our axis is no longer what it used to be, right? The axis, a small degree of change in the Earth's axis, can actually be a pretty good corrective measure for the jet stream returning back to normal. But back in the 1930s, right, the jet stream weakened, reversed, and we had the Dust Bowl. Okay, so here we are.
Now, let me ask you, with the fact that we have a blood moon tonight, it's going to be over Canada, the United States, Mexico, Central America, South America. That's a stronger gravitational pull. In lieu of the fact that the coast plates that you've talked about, we've had the earthquake in Venezuela, then in Colombia, then in Peru, then now we have this incredible earthquake over here in Nepal, which is just directly across the Ring of Fire. Do you see this coming back, or do you see the coast plate? I mean, how dangerous is this situation, and how concerned are you?
Any danger, any large vibrations like that can loosen that cork, right? The champagne cork can disrupt the plates with magnitude. That's the very event no one, I don't want to see happen, but I'm watching for it. And things are slowly creeping to that point. There are fractures in the coast plate because there have been too many earthquakes in South America. So there are fractures there, and there are new magma flows underneath the ground in Mexico, right? So we will probably have some sort of an eruption, which will only serve to weaken, right, some of the pressure on the coast plate. From any pressure on any side of the coast plate will cause the opposite side or the adjacent side to start, give way or move or tilt just a little bit. If it does that, we're going to have a disruption in all the plates that rely upon pressure of the coast plate. It truly is a champagne cork. And if it comes out, we've lost stability. And if that happens, I just can't see how California will maintain itself.
Maintain itself, in other words, exist, or?
Well, I don't see how the fault lines would not abruptly shift, right? There's more than this, the fault lines that people are used to. First of all, if you look at a map of the USA and you start researching fault lines, some of the new fault lines, they should show within the USA that there are lots of fault lines, Pastor Paul. And these fault lines will likely be affected if California begins to shift, right? Southern California, they begin to shift because of the coast plate. The center of the USA is going to be deeply affected. Rock strata is going to be affected because of the way that we're formed vertically, right? That'll be a catastrophe, right? It'll always start with a smell. That's one thing we can count on, because any change in California, that landmass, any change in California is going to release a lot of that methane and there's a lot of gases underneath the ocean, right? They'll start to come up and people will begin to smell them. Birds will leave California, should that happen. Then there'll be a small vibration effect, a low frequency vibration that will last for days, likely. Animals will respond to that and likely, do some weird things. At that point, I would not be in San Diego. I just wouldn't be in San Diego, Los Angeles, those places. I wouldn't be in those places. But then Northern California is just as vulnerable because of the ancient volcanoes.
So this, again, San Diego, even all the way up to Southern California, you're talking San Diego, Los Angeles, is truly a danger zone because of the coast plate, because of the fault lines that run along the Mexican fault lines all the way up into San Diego area and LA.
That's my indication that's a calculated indicator of a massive weakening.
But is the animals going to give us a heads up? I mean, is there something that Will they know? Will we begin to see birds
Oh
fleeing or
yeah, yeah, oh
animals
yeah, oh
running?
yeah. If the California landmass is disrupted like that, gases will be released. Lots of methane will be released. Specifically, methane is going to stink real bad. Animals will begin to leave the West Coast. But my point is, when that happens, because I believe it will, right? Again, there are sensors in the ocean. There are sensors on the land. The fault line is not. It's not. We're talking about a dynamic fault line that's always moving. And now that Mexico has started to vibrate, things are happening in Mexico that are just, they have whole mountaintops or mountain crevasses that are caving in, right? They're losing roads. And it's starting to get rough there, right? So Mexico is becoming a little unstable. And that's one of the signs that the entire northern hemisphere is about to be affected. The Coast Coast plate is, you could say, is a trigger. It's a trigger for that. Once it goes, Mexico starts going, and then once Mexico destabilizes, well, California is going to follow suit, and the Grand Canyons will be affected, right? So
In
it's not
what
like
way? In what way would the Grand Canyon be affected? River, water?
there. There are a few faults in the Grand Canyons, likewise, right? Historically, they show people how the Grand Canyons are formed. They'll probably, people will start talking about that couldn't be due to what's in the Grand Canyons, right? They haven't always been the way they are. And they've reshaped themselves a little bit, right? It's very difficult to map certain places of the Grand Canyons due to movement. So liquefaction, they know, took place in the Grand Canyons. It'll happen again. If that happens, ground can become just like liquid, right? Sand, dirt, all of that can become like liquid. And so you have these large mountain ranges that will either give way, completely transform, sink, some will rise, all sorts of things will happen. And they will be highly affected. There's no way the Grand Canyon stays stable if the West Coast is disrupted.
Mike, let's move to another topic here that I think is very serious. And Russia, and I did a Patreon earlier, actually yesterday, that Russia has removed their ambassador to London, to the UK. They haven't replaced him. And now we're getting reports that some essential personnel are being removed from the Russian embassy also in the UK. The FBI director, Kash Patel, he went to Moscow. I found out about this yesterday, and actually the day before that. I never said a word I never came on the air. I never made mention because of the source that gave me the
Right,
info.
right.
But there's something going on. I mean, for the
Yeah.
FBI director to go and meet with Vladimir Putin in Moscow, is there any information that we can know? What is there some kind of negotiation going on right now to try to end the war with Ukraine, or is there something bigger going on?
Well, there are negotiations, right? But there's been a push in the Middle East and with Russia and the Ukraine to come to some sort of conclusion about what's happening, right? The President Trump needs a direction that this thing is going in. Because what it's doing is zapping the entire plan of the Middle East. This is what's happening. So naturally, if Putin, there are certain concessions that Putin is asking for, right? But he's already said he's not going to play ball with, he's not really going to cooperate with current plan that they have right now. He's just not going to give up his dream.
To take out Ukraine.
Yeah, he's not going to give up his dream. And so he's going to take his precautions and what he has to do just in case things escalate. I do believe we will see an abrupt escalation in the Middle East. I do believe that. They are in the Middle East. These leaders will often see what other nations are doing first, They'll go to the places and do visits and everything else, and then war breaks out, right? That's the way they operate. And so I do believe there's a push to get Putin to cooperate with the U.S.'s side of things in the Middle East prior to a push or major event, right? We need to see what side Russia is on. That's extremely important. That's extremely important, right? They're a pretty big power. They still have some big weapons there.
I mean,
and they can make a difference.
I mean, you've said that Russia and Iran are joined at the hip.
Yep, they are.
So, if that's the case, now what about the fact that Turkey and Saudi Arabia and Iran and Pakistan are trying to form some kind of alliance? What in the world kind of a deal is that? I mean, Saudi Arabians are Sunni rebels. The Iranians are Shiite. They've not acted like
we talked about that last week.
Yeah,
remember?
we did. Well, now Turkey jumps in the mix, and they're even saying that they're trying to get Egypt to join in. So what's going on, Mike?
I think an alliance is forming. I really do, based upon the language, based upon the back chatter. I really do think a Middle Eastern alliance is forming. And I hate to say this, it's against Israel, right? Just like Putin is trouble for peace, negotiations, the accords right now, just as he is trouble. So Israel is trouble for every move in the Middle East. And this is out of their mouths. But the bad part is this, they're unifying behind that same message, Sunni and Shia, right? They're unifying behind this one message. And it is, they're not speaking nation to nation. They're speaking faith to faith. So the whole thing is changing.
That puts us in a vulnerable situation. Israel is what they're all talking about. No doubt about that. The United States, of course, stands with Israel. They have to deal with us. But more and more of these nations that start building a new coalition, then that speaks to the prophecy of Psalms 83 again, that talks about this confederacy against Israel to wipe Israel from the face of the map. So once again, and then Benjamin Netanyahu faces trouble at home. His nation, there's some of the lawmakers there trying to make a move to remove him.
Yep.
But this seems to be a very vulnerable time for such a thing as that to be going on. I mean, how does America has to stay with Israel in this. Do you believe we will stay with Israel for some time anyway?
Well, I think we will for as long as we can, right? But that's when I leave it to the experts. I mean, prophecy states what it states. Yeah. We know that at some point there's going to be a purging of sorts.
42 months, the 42 right? months, the Gentiles, right?
But it's not you know what? Part of that, there are people in Israel that are not for Israel. They're not.
No, I know.
Okay,
I know that.
I mean, they are defiling Israel every chance they get, and so those are the same ones who will likely be removed through what's soon to happen. According to prophecy, according to how I may understand prophecy, they're going to be removed through this act, and then that will be the end of that. But this coalition certainly points in that direction, right? It's now turning into almost a full faith war. I think that America, here's the part that makes me a little nervous. Not nervous in the spirit, but just nervous in the, as a normal person.
Right.
How could anybody overtake Israel with the USA standing? Right. So there's this resounding thought in my head of some of the threats that face us right now. Right. Last week there was talk of the capability of missile launches against the East Coast and in the interior portions of the USA.
Are you serious?
That is possible. In fact, there are a lot of things that probably won't be discussed openly, but I'll say this, that USA is a target right now of just about everybody, right? And it's sad to say we're also a target of those who live in the USA. those who are completely American but are given over to a different ideology.
Is it a
And that will likely be solidified here. I give it a couple months, and I think people will get a good idea about what betrayal actually is.
Mike, let me ask you. The midterms are coming. My book is coming out, Trump versus the Beast, October the 6th. It will be
timely.
Newsmax has already told me that they're going to be having me do a lot of interviews on Newsmax, different television shows and different podcasts to push the book, because they want to push the message that Trump is in a spiritual battle. They agree with me that the beast kingdom is a global spiritual battle. It's not Trump. Trump is representing, of course, the ideology of Christianity and the support of Israel. Okay, so my question to you is: let's just say the midterms happen, and let's hope to God this don't happen. But what if the Republicans lose the House and the Senate? Is President Trump likely to be impeached during his final 2 years?
Yeah.
Will he be even potentially removed from office? This has never happened in our country's history.
They will not, Pastor. They're not going to hold back. They're not going to hold back. I don't think that people understand just these people. First of all, I know people have picked their sides. But I have to say this from hearing behind the doors sometimes. There's a faction, a group of people that hate Jesus Christ. They hate the church. They're worse than the UFO folks, right?
Right.
They hate Christ. They hate the church. These folks would do anything to break the backs of Christianity. And there's some folks that influence them, right? Because these are Age of Aquarius type people in there. They have an idea of what they want the USA to be, right? They're going to force it to happen. They're going to force it to happen.
Well,
with all of what they are, they're going to try and force it to happen.
Part of it okay, go ahead.
Having said that, because you already know that if they lose the House and Senate for some reason, they will do everything in their power to jail Trump. Not only Trump, but they will jail some other folks. They will instantly go to work, and they won't sleep until it's done, right? Of course, that would destroy any cohesion in this country.
It would absolutely.
It would also cause the murderous types of folks to stand up in this country against anybody who believes in Christ. Here's one. For a long time, policy has supported those of a specific type. I won't go into detail, but of a specific type. It's been that specific type who has been shooting, who has been murdering, who has been plotting and planning. We're not talking about Muslim people.
No.
We're not talking about folks who are, who they should be based on the U.S.'s enemies. We're talking about people that are born here, but people who do not like to be suppressed and what they would like to express, right? They are ready. They have coordinated in great numbers. They already know they shipped weapons all throughout the USA, right? They've intercepted countless tractor trailers full of weapons. So they are armed and ready. If this turns over, then expect trouble. Expect something akin to Jade Helm, because the military will have to be used.
And it
will be used.
This Jade Helm, I remember when this happened back in 2014, 2015. You talked about it quite a bit. That it was a preliminary exercise of a police state. My question is, I guess, if this happened, Trump was impeached by the House, would the Senate convict him and remove him from office? at that point, would he be arrested if he was removed from office?
Yes, yes,
Unless he
yep,
was willing to
they
resign
would.
and go away peaceably.
They don't want that. They want
No.
him to. We already know what they want, right? They really do hate this guy. They really do, and so they're going to do what they have to do to make sure he pays for what he didn't pay for. See, right now they still see him as a criminal, right? That's what they see him as a criminal. So that's what will happen with that, and it's sad to say, but there's a lot of international support from the Middle East for one side of the coin in this country, right? They're standing by. So we know what will happen with that. But again, in another 2 months, we're going to see indications of a clear plan, right? They want to force things to happen. They want to force them to happen. Should anybody falter, right, they will take full advantage of that. But Pastor, they want to force an entirely different system, not the government system we have right now.
No.
They want to force another system to be put in place, an emergency system.
So you're going beyond communism or socialism. You're talking about.
Yeah, if we're talking beyond that, they want an emergency system put in place. It's, but we'll find ourselves in somewhat of an emergency if these people have their way.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I believe the final say really is up to the church.
Yeah, it's coming down
I believe
to
it's
it.
up to the church.
Well, the church is going to have to get out and vote. You're going to have to pray and vote. They can't just hope it gets okay, hope it's going to work out. They're going to have to do more than that. And the church is going to have to turn back to God first and foremost. There's some repentance that needs to go on in the church. Wouldn't you agree?
They're going to make their stance known. Yeah, the one thing that gets me right now is they're going to make their stance known. You see some people back down because they're intimidated by other people. I believe you and Bishop were talking about that earlier, about Jesus establishing something right there in front of the power center, Satan's origins for the earth drama that we go through. But the church has to make a choice. We got to make a choice to stand up. I do believe if we do stand up, right, at least, because I don't want to be the one where the Lord says, "Depart from me, you worker of iniquity. I never knew you."
No.
And then knowing that word is yada, the same word that was used in Genesis 4 when Adam knew his wife, but that word is yada. So that's a different type of knowing. That's just not knowing about someone. That's an intimate knowing.
Right.
Which means a lot of people, if you stand for faith like that thief on the cross, he didn't do anything good in his life, but he believed in Jesus. That's why he said, this man has done nothing wrong.
Right.
You can only say that if you know about Christ and believe in what he was doing. And that guy, Jesus said, today you'll be with me in paradise.
That's right.
So he believed in him. That's intimate. And when you believe in someone, you don't turn your back on them.
No.
When you believe in someone, you stand for them. You don't hide yourself. You actually stand for them. Well, that's what the church has to do.
Well, the church we're very divided right now. The church part of the church does not believe in Jesus. And I mean that. They are not preaching that Jesus is the way. They're talking about Jesus as a potential concept, or he's got some good thoughts, or they're not saying that he's the Son of God. He is the Messiah, the creator of all things, the Redeemer. No, I would say half of the body of Christ is just coasting along and not fully surrendering, or what I mean by that is not fully believing he is the true Messiah. That is a gigantic statement to think that half of the church doesn't believe that Jesus is the Son of God.
I think I know why. You know what, Pastor Paul, to doubt something, right? If I were to doubt a fact, that means I believe in another fact already, right?
What do you think that fact would? You're exactly right.
I think that these people have been impacted by some of the programs that have been going on dealing with paranormal activity, with all these. You remember the term, remember what they used to say, you have to trust the science?
Yes.
You remember that?
Yes,
Over and over again. That's
yes.
exactly what people did. And I noticed a period where people would say, prove it, prove it, prove it, prove it. You know, and in that time, it's okay to prove certain things of men. They can prove how a computer works, but they cannot prove anything about the Messiah unless the Lord give it to us by revelation, by the Spirit. But so many people got hooked up on this factual thing. But now they don't believe. Why? Because they're waiting on facts. They're waiting on proof to hit.
So we've moved away from faith to you got to show me, factual. And then if the UFO movement says, oh, we can show you facts. We can show you manifestations. We can show you. We can have people tell you how they were abducted, how that they were probed, how that they were shown the orbs. We can prove there was healings and strange entities that spoke to people. And so they're creating facts. And then people are saying, but the church can't produce any facts. The church doesn't have to produce facts. Christ is already the fact. And what he did, the church has to do is teach faith in Christ.
That's right.
So
That's right. That's right. Because nobody proved Christ to me. But guess what? When I was little, nobody had to tell me that Christ was Christ.
No.
Somehow I knew. Now, that wasn't given to me by mankind.
No.
That's internal. That's something man didn't give me, environment didn't put in me, or anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is very, very concerning that this is where we're going. That this is where I think the bishop and I were talking, that the church has to decide who you're going to be when you grow up. You know, if you really sell out to Christ, you can't stop us. The devil can't stop us. We only can stop ourselves. And half of our denominationals, unfortunately, half of especially some of our mainline denominations, have just completely turned their back on Christ, and they're preaching an ungodly gospel. I mean, seriously, abominations are fine, and in a lot of different areas, not just in one area or two, but it's a lack of faith, completely a lack of faith gospel.
Yeah. I tell you, when the pressure hits, when the church is not liked, when they're hated and hunted, that's when people will know who is who. Yeah. That's when it's no longer this passive thing that we do, but we're going to be hunted for it. In fact, on the internet right now, all the ISP laws are different, right? And everybody's PC, their traffic is running through your ISPs. There's no way to get around it. They are actively profiling, I guess you could say, what people are spending their time on the internet, but they're looking for very specific things. So they're going to know exactly who people are. No one will be able to hide what they actually believe in. This is going to be important for the filtering that will take place, right? If they go forward with this UFO narrative, they're going to know who's a Christian and who is not. Yes. They're going to know this. They're going to know who's phony and who is real, based upon an individual's, based upon their information. So the EULAs, the end users license agreements, have been altered. And essentially right now, even if you talk on the phone, you're agreeing that your conversation belongs to the company. Nothing is private anymore.
So in other words, these data centers are recording all this this is to create profiling. And what about these flock cameras? I mean, there's tons of them now. You see them everywhere now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I guess they told people they're for the police to track license plates, right?
Yeah, that's what they told me.
And so they make a story up where people have problems being tracked. But a camera, an HD camera, can also track the outline of your body, right? By algorithms, your bone structure can be extracted by the way you thus your ID.
Yep.
These data centers now are linked directly to ISPs. Any information that goes from your computer goes through the ISP, through that data center, back to a distribution point, and then to the other person, information-wise. Data centers right now are plugged into your ISP, your internet service provider. Everything is going through these data centers. So, in the Bible, when it says that the beast is going to have power to kill as many as will not worship it,
Yep.
I believe that's how it's going to know. That's
Because
how it's going to know.
How it's going to know is because of the collective information in these data centers and the profiling. This is ultimate profiling, isn't it? It's totally ultimate.
Yep. Yes, sir.
So let me ask you. So now we have a lot of arms in our country, a lot of guns floating around, more than we've ever had in the history of this nation.
Yeah.
Is there militias being established from both sides of the aisle? I mean, are we seeing a buildup militarily, some type of buildup going on?
I see a huge one, Pastor Paul, a huge one. Some of the stats indicate that too many people are armed. Based on ammunition buys, they know that just about everybody's armed. They know that. Just almost everybody has some sort of defense right now.
Well,
without morals.
That's the problem.
And right now they know what side you're on. Right?
Yeah.
They know what side people are on. So everything is primed. It seems like things are just about primed. Primed to the point where if something were to take place, they know it's going to be an uncontrollable thing. And in fact, I can almost guarantee in 2 months, you're going to hear an echo. You're going to hear President Trump say something, right? Something pertaining to the fact that if something is altered with him too much, it'll be a breakout within the USA. Some sort of breakout, just something pertaining to that.
Wow.
A warning. Yeah, a warning.
If something is altered with him, there could be outbreak.
Yeah, some sort of breakout in the USA. Absolutely. Yeah.
So we're living in dangerous times. The body of Christ needs to be vigilant. We need to be real. We need to be praying. We need to be loving. We need to be strong. And we need to know that they can't stop us if we unite together, but we have to unite with a common cause.
That's right.
The cause of Christ.
That's right.
The Great Commission, the love of one another, the love of all mankind. We got to love all mankind. It's not a we-they thing. We have to love everybody. It's not hard if you have Christ truly in your heart. But boy, we've got to get back. And this is what I mean by revival. Revival to me is getting people to turn back to the rudiments of the foundations of truth, of the love of God, the grace of God, showing compassion for your fellow man, no matter what ideological view he has or she has, or no matter what their background is or where they came from or what they're doing. We got to love humanity. And if we do that, that's how revival will come. It's going to take that. And I hope that that's the message being preached out there. I hope that that's what we're trying to do and not to be part of the division. It's going to be tough.
I can't say this, though, Pascal. Through ministries like yours and Larry Ragland, things like that, people are, it's almost like there's a concentration of truth moving through people. In other words, they don't want the hype anymore, right?
No.
They're looking for something tangible,
Right.
spiritually tangible.
Right.
They already know the other ways. They're experts in the other ways. They're looking for something spiritually tangible.
Yes.
And so people are actually getting back to the word again.
Amen.
I mean, back to the word. They're getting back to the word. So,
Amen.
yeah, something is doing something.
Well, that's what we want, and maybe that's part of the end time, the coming of Christ, coming for His bride, coming for
Oh,
the
yes.
redeemed, which we truly want to be. That, folks, you really want to be on the right side. You don't want to be somewhere else playing around. You want to be in the real deal, and you want to get Christ your life, and you want to love one another. I mean, that is the real deal. Loving your neighbor as yourself, loving your enemy, praying for your enemy. And not that you have an enemy, you don't want an enemy, but there is an enemy against Christ. Pray for each and every person. Show the love of God. Be compassionate towards those who are less fortunate. Show the love of God. And I think that if you'll do that, you'll find yourself being unstoppable, because they can't stop us if we trust
Nope.
in Christ.
Nope.
Mike,
Nope. They cannot.
thank you so much tonight for, again, speaking on a lot of subjects, a lot of topics here. We did get into that UFO thing a lot, but I felt like after Larry was on here, we probably should have talked about it some, and it was good we did. So appreciate it tonight for all you do, because you're constantly staying steadfast, unmovable in the work of the Lord, and that is so important. So thank you so much.
Sir, it's an honor. Always an honor.
The honor's
Always.
mine. The honor's mine, Mike. Thank you.